when it comes to envy and resentment, we can't really be honest with ourselves. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's important to sit with yourself, quiet your mind, and kind of tap into those feelings and understand where it comes from. And if you're not a person, or if you've mastered those emotions and you have friends or family suffering from the same thing and they outward express their emotions, these might be tools that you could use to assist or to help them, because I know for a fact that it took me to reframe my mind and want to dig deeper and to want to better myself, for me to be able to feed into all these different type of topics. And it's been a point of growth for me. You know, as any other person in here, I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, but I try to educate myself as best as possible, especially when it comes to me being a better version of myself. So it is episode 8 of Motivation Monday, and the topic today is envy and resentment. You know, and the best person to compare yourself with is always yourself from the day before. Never take somebody else's situation and compare it to yourself, because, you know, envy is a very toxic emotion, and resentment can make you feel stuck and miserable. And feeling resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to feel the effects of the poison. But hopefully, by learning how to manage your envy and resentment, you know, you can tap into different keys of life, or how to just be a happier self. And if not, you know, you can help out a friend. You never know. You know, we live in a very competitive world where everybody is trying to be successful, and sometimes people become envious, you know, of other people's success. Look at how many people become envious and bitter and resentful. Hey, French Bouquet. I love how you speak. Thank you, Paul. If you look at how many people become envious, bitter, resentful because of comparing themselves to other people, it is insane. Because you see, I can use social media as a great example. A lot of times we look on social media, and maybe it's somebody who's doing something and is successful in something that you want to do, but you're looking at their social media, you're looking at the highlights of their life, and you're comparing your whole life to their highlights. And I think a mistake that a lot of people do and a lot of us make is when you compare yourself to somebody else, or their standard, or how they went. Every single person's process of success or doing things and growth is different. And an important thing about that is becoming more self-aware, or basically knowing that self-awareness plays a big should have treated you, whether you've communicated that enough with a person. It's all about, did you maintain that communication? Do they know what you expect of them? And if the roles were reversed, how would you react? Correct. JKB said, it's been a while since I felt envy though, even with myself. That is really good. Even envy usually stems from jealousy, from what I've seen. Yes, and like I said, envy, jealousy, two different things, because envy, I think, is so much more of a toxic emotion, whereas jealousy is something you can deal with. You know what I mean? But with envy, you need a little bit more tools. And so I think instead of being envious of a person that you don't know what they sacrificed to get there, you don't know how many how many hobbles they went past or had to overcome to get to the place where they are now successful, because you only see the good. You don't see the struggles. You don't see the things that they had to sacrifice to get them there. So if you do have those things in place, it's easy to kind of tell yourself, okay, now I understand, so I know a little bit better. So it is important to ask yourself those kind of questions. And just hands, just a show of hands. Who in the stream has ever felt envy or resentment, and how have you dealt with that? Feel free to give me a little example in the comment section, and if you want to get in the box, you feel free to do so as well. But as I've said before, it's important to, a very long time ago, yes, I'd like to hear your story. But pinpointing what makes you feel so jealous, use those feelings as a wake-up call, to figure out what you're missing in your world, because it will kind of get you the ground or foundation in how to change that into a positive, or how to make that better for yourself. And like I said, knowing it's a feeling and not things because jealousy can be misleading, and it can literally make you see things very, how you say, in a very obscure manner. So know that you can, that you can have it too. You do not have to compare yourself to anybody else but you. What you did, how you did it yesterday, you can always improve. I always say, and I think I read this actually in one of Usher's, what is that album, Confessions. He said, do not make all the mistakes yourself, learn from other people's mistakes as well. So instead of feeling envy towards these people, it's important to ask the important questions like, how did you deal with the negativity? Learn from them. They are already successful, whether it's in the same field as you or whether it's just you learning how to have a better mentality. Ask questions. How do you deal with negativity? How did you deal and overcome certain things? What was those things that stand in your way? Because you're educating yourself on how to be a better you. And you can always just do that. When you compare yourself to you, the growth that you will see will be so much better, and everything you do will be so much better. Should have treated you, whether you've communicated that enough with a person. It's all about, did you maintain that communication? Do they know what you expect of them? And if the roles were reversed, how would you react? Correct. JKB said, it's been a while since I felt envy though, even with myself. That is really good. Even envy usually stems from jealousy, from what I've seen. Yes, and like I said, envy, jealousy, two different things, because envy, I think, is so much more of a toxic emotion, whereas jealousy is something you can deal with, you know what I mean? But with envy, you need a little bit more tools. And so I think instead of being envious of a person that you don't know what they sacrificed to get there, you don't know how many hobbles they went past or had to overcome to get to the place where they are now successful, because you only see the good. You don't see the struggles. You don't see the things that they had to sacrifice to get them there. So if you do have those things in place, it's easy to kind of tell yourself, okay, now I understand, so I know a little bit better. So it is important to ask yourself those kind of questions. And just a show of hands. Who in the stream has ever felt envy or resentment, and how have you dealt with that? Feel free to give me a little example in the comment section, and if you want to get in the box, you feel free to do so as well. But as I've said before, it's important to, a very long time ago, yes, I'd like to hear your story. But pinpointing what makes you feel so jealous, use those feelings as a wake-up call, to figure out what you're missing in your world, because it will kind of get you the ground or foundation in how to change that into a positive, or how to make that better for yourself, And like I said, knowing it's a feeling and not things, because jealousy can be misleading, and it can literally make you see things very, how you say, in a very obscure manner. So know that you can, that you can have it too. You do not have to compare yourself to anybody else but you. What you did, how you did it yesterday, you can always improve. I always say, and I think I read this actually in one of Usher's, what is that album, Confessions. He said, do not make all the mistakes yourself, learn from other people's mistakes as well. So instead of feeling envy towards these people, it's important to ask the important questions like, how did you deal with the negativity? Learn from them. They are already successful, whether it's in the same field as you, or whether it's just you learning how to have a better mentality. Ask questions. How do you deal with negativity? How did you deal and overcome certain things? What was those things that stand in your way? Because you're educating yourself on how to be a better you. And you can always just do that. When you compare yourself to you, the growth that you will see will be so much better, and everything you do will be so much better. Use it as motivation, 1000%. And I know some people is like, what? You can't use it as motivation, but if you learn how to turn it around, you can definitely do that. Hi, my queen. Hey, Kyle. I used the negativity as fire to make me want to do it more. Okay, 100%. I can see that. Got you. Okay, let's see. Josh is trying to get in the box. Let me see what Josh has to say.
Right. I actually I enjoy this conversation that you're having here about envy, jealousy, and all this
That's
sort of
good
stuff.
to know. What do you have to add to the conversation, though? You were saying something about jealousy. So do you want to like give us a little more information about that?
Yeah, well, basically, obviously, I'm only 19, but when I was 17, like my mother died and stuff, so I had to move away from home, live on my own and stuff.
Mhm.
And I got jealous of all my friends being able to live with mum and dad and all that bollocks and stuff. But at the end of it all, you realise that it's good for them that they've still got that thing. There's no point being jealous. You move on from it, and you
Right.
just because people around you are enjoying it better than you, doing better than you, doesn't mean you should be jealous of somebody. You get on with it and you deal
Right.
with it.
How was your behavior towards your friends during that time? Was it like negative or did you hide it?
Oh, I hit it. I didn't make it obvious, like because it wasn't a fair thing to be
Right.
jealous. It's life, isn't it?
Did you deal with those things and figure it out by yourself, or did you eventually share it with your friends in terms of how you felt?
Uh, I say a bit of both. Obviously, at first dealt with it myself, and then eventually I just says to them, at this point, fucking, it does annoy me a bit. It does get on my nerves. It does peck me out a bit, but it is what it is, isn't it? You move forward from it, you learn better, and you do better.
Right. I think like a big thing with that is, recognizing the work or whatever they did to get to where they are. And sometimes that you don't dictate your own circumstances and what you go through, but
Yeah,
it's how you deal with it that makes you either a better version of yourself or make you stagnant and stuck in one place. So
oh,
when you know the
definitely.
difference between those two things, it will always take you higher.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, as it stands now, obviously I'm on my own. I've got my own place and stuff. I'm doing for myself. I work and stuff, and I'm still happy to see my friends that have got. As it stands right now, I'm happy that my friends are still at home. I'm happy that they don't have to do these things. Pay rent, bills, all this. I'm happy to see it for them that they can, live a little less stress free. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I feel like this is also going to teach you so much more things if you allow to stay open to it. Because, like I said, compare yourself to you, and you're always going to reach the next. Now you're learning responsibility. I hated bills. When I
yeah,
first had to pay for everything, I'm like, Jesus, is this how much my mom paid for everything? Is this what my dad paid for? This is not fair. And, it took me working harder towards my goals and my need for success for me to not look at other people and say, why do they get to have this? Or how did they get there so quickly? And it's kind of staying focused on my own journey that allowed me to help to do better. But thank you, Josh, for sharing your story. I do appreciate you hopping in the box.
yeah. No, thank you. It's nice to speak.
Once again, like I said, all of these things that we are discussing now, there is small little changes you can make, but the most important one is knowing that you need to work on yourself. I think that none of us are perfect, and we're still learning how to be better versions of ourselves. So, whatever information I've learned so far, I share freely because I always want people to share with me because I'm like a sponge. I always want to, absorb knowledge, and I do try to be very teachable. So, it is important for me that, especially when I see somebody is successful, whether it's somebody that is good in finances. If I walk into the room and I'm one of the smartest people or the smartest person, I'm in the wrong room. So I try to surround myself with people smarter than me and people that can always teach me something better or different. Also, another thing of people that you envy and people that you look at in resentment is to, when I say do what they do, is like learn from them instead of starting looking at them like with envious eyes. You know what I mean? Basically, I learned with time the importance of celebrating my victories, no matter how small, like you very well stated. There we go. And that is, I think, such an important thing, celebrating the small things. And that's something that I never did before. I never celebrated the small moments. I never celebrated the things that ultimately that I did successful because I always looked at it as, oh, it's not like this. It's not like this person's. It's not big enough. You know what I mean? But allowing myself to celebrate the little things also allowed me to look at myself, or basically feeds your self-confidence in a very big way. So it basically allowed me to look at myself a little different. So it basically allowed me to look at myself a little differently and to understand that, all these things that I am doing right now, all the things that I did do are things that make me a better version of myself and things that ultimately, will make me a better person. But sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow or to admit, shit, yes, I was envious. Or yes, I was I had this resentment. So it's so important for me always, like when I feel resentful, to work through my feelings to find out, is there a real reason why I feel this way? Or is just this something that I've, kind of put together in my mind and I'm not really thinking straight? Because like I said, jealousy, envy, and resentment will often it's misleading feelings. It will always mislead you into looking at situations and not knowing how to set a goal board, small goals first, milestones next, finally, ultimate goal of what you want. Hi, Rico. So, yeah, that is also it. It's a very good, but figure out who to compare yourself to, because a lot of times you look at people and you compare yourself to them. Like sometimes a friend of yours has an amazing job and they make great money, and it's not that you're jealous or envious because they're doing all those things and they're successful, or like Josh said, living a life where they don't have to pay bills and stuff. Sometimes it is not what they have, but it's the fact that they're so far and successful. Sometimes you're not in the same career choice, and those are not the same things that you want for yourself. Now that I think I did have a slight resentment towards my friends as I had what I lost, as they had what I lost. Right, like I said, it's resentment is more of a lingering and a toxic feeling. So these little things literally help you to figure it. You don't know the other person's life. You get rich people who are suffering, who's in pain, who's in emotional turmoil, who sacrificed so much to get to where they are, and have the things they sacrificed. And if you know about it, it would literally shock you. So comparing yourself to anybody but you in terms of what you want for your life and success is not a realistic way to look at things. You have to compare yourself to yourself. Like, this is my dreams, this is my goal. And like JKB said, celebrate the little things, set the milestones, set the goals, but compare yourself to you yesterday. What did I do today or yesterday, today that I didn't do yesterday, And a part of that, something I do every single night. Before I go to sleep, I go through everything that I want to achieve, and I say everything out loud to myself that I have achieved so far. Every single morning when I wake up, I tell myself, this is what I want to achieve. This is the time I give myself to get there. And I am patient with myself, but I'm going to stay determined and hardworking. But because if I would compare myself to anybody else that's doing what I'm doing in my field or my profession, I would be absolutely miserable. There are some girls in the game right now who are absolutely killing it in my industry. For those of you who don't know what I do, I'm a buyer for a jewelry company, and my job is rare stones, and we have a different department who does 18 karat gold, etc. But then there's also other girls in the different sections of the company doing the same thing, and they're good at what they do. So I want to learn from them because I want to perfect my game. I want to make sure I'm on top. I want to make sure I'm on top of everything. So I do ask questions, and I do follow their regimens and the way they do things, because ultimately, from me being envious, I'm not going to learn anything from it. All it's going to make me is bitter and stuck and miserable. So instead of that, you kind of turn that around by saying, this is what I need to do, this is where I want to be, and these are the steps I need to get there. JKB, sorry, let me go back real quick and just get this real quick. He said, reflection of who's in the mirror. Envision yourself where you want to be. Meditate, shift your focus to your goal. That is beautiful and right on the nose. Hi, Oni. Think about it. You are where you are, and you think where you want to be and who you want to be. Exactly those things. So you have to ask yourself these questions, because you have to ask yourself these questions, because comparing yourself is an illusion. Ultimately speaking, if you're going to compare yourself, it's not realistic. It's not attainable. And thinking that, they have it as good as they do, some people really don't. They have wealth, but they're not happy. They don't have self-awareness. They don't have self-confidence. And where you in an emotionally bitter place, not knowing what their lives is. So, don't compare yourself. If you want the future to work out, sacrifices has to be real. Your commitment towards your goals and how you want to achieve them has to be things that are You have to be realistic about your goals, but most importantly, work hard to get them as well. To absorb others' knowledge is success and improvement, 1000%. Y'all dropping knowledge today. You never know. You can only see what they show you. Right. Like I just said, the comparison that I just made, and I say, you can never, you look at people, sometimes looking at people's social media. Those are people's highlights in their life. And you're comparing your everyday life and everyday situation to somebody else's highlights. So unfortunately, you end up making yourself absolutely miserable because you're comparing with something that isn't very realistic. Being happy on the outside requires you to be happy on the inside first. Be thankful for what you have first. So a big part of that is when you learn how to deal with envy and resentment, you ultimately give yourself more power, more self-confidence, and it does mean you tap into a deeper layer of being self-aware. Because the first part of acknowledging that these are the things I feel, they're not positive feelings, but they are nevertheless feelings that I'm experiencing. Now you ask yourself, how do I deal with it? So first and most foremost, you gotta acknowledge this is what it is. And then you gotta ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And then you ask yourself, okay, but is this a valid feeling? Or is there something I can do about it? But always use those two things. If I wake up the next day, another work, there we go. So compare yourself to the one before. Hey, Prince, if you can't accept who you are and where you are, you can never push yourself further as you put yourself into a hole without a shovel. 1000%. Josh is dropping knowledge for his young age. But yeah, age is nothing but a number. But a lot of people struggle with this to such an extent that they have to do behavior therapy, which is an amazing tools that help you address the issues if you don't know how to go about it. And even if you have the tools, you don't know how to implement it. Behavioral therapy is one of the things that really help you figure out the little things. And I look at the world a little differently as I did before. And I understand myself a lot more because it became important for me to reframe my mind and become more self-aware. And becoming more self-aware is addressing the issues within inside of yourself and understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. And if you have things that are weaknesses, you can always revise that list and say, how can I turn this into a positive? How can I put this as a strength? Or what do I require to do to change this into making it something better? But the only person ultimately that I compare myself to is me. I compete with me. I used to be a person who held back. When people didn't like a certain thing, I would hold back because even if it would hinder my success, because I used to make sure, I was a people pleaser, in a way of saying it. So certain things that I would enjoy, I wouldn't do because I wanted everybody to be happy, but I wasn't happy. And, you got to start with yourself. If you're going to add value into people's lives, you need to be happy with who you are. And everybody else who likes you after that is an extra like, because I like who I am as a person. I love myself enough to say that if you like me or if you vibe with me, that's an extra like or an extra vibe, because I already vibe and like myself. So it is so important to go through those emotions, feel all those negative things so that you can learn from it and get something positive from it and kind of move forward in your life in a positive direction. All three of my daughters are very much daddy's girls. Yeah. For the most part, I know the little one is. I strive to be a better version of myself every day, no matter how small the improvement is. What I deeply regret is how our scholar system do not provide this kind of education, which is undoubtedly beneficial to human development. And that's what I think that's something that we discussed last week, me and Lux. I said to her that there's so many things that I learned and discovered by myself. And these are all things that I never had a person who could tell me all these things, because although, yes, we have expectations of other people, if you do not communicate your expectations or constantly, lead them in the right direction or stay communicative, you end up being resentful towards people who didn't give you that feeding of the soul in a way. But I ultimately feel like if I didn't learn these things by myself, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. I think I would have still been stuck, stagnant, or going backwards in life, because I've heard about it. Have I implemented it? I went after the knowledge because I wanted to be a better version of myself. But guys, like I said, I can only share my point of view and my experience. As I said, as anybody, I've made a ton of mistakes. I'm still going to make more. But I try to learn from them, and I try to allow myself to feel the things that I don't understand. And I try to seek answers within myself instead of looking outward for answers, looking outward for validation, looking outward for people to understand what I'm feeling. So it starts with self. You have to be self-aware. You have to tap into what you feel, no matter how annoying it is or not good the feeling feel.